Hello, welcome back. Let's get more now, shall we, on the news that the King and Queen are to visit Canada later this month. The royal family confirmed the news in the last half hour, posting on X that the King and Queen will visit Canada from Monday the 26th to Tuesday the 27th of May. Their Majesties will attend the state opening of the Parliament of Canada in Ottawa. Well, I'm glad to see that our royal correspondent, Rhiannon Mills, is here in our little family studio.
So lovely to join you all.
Yeah,
We've been very busy.
So just talk us through what's been announced today.
Yeah, so I think what's interesting about this is there had been some mutterings at the end of last year, start of this year, about whether the King would visit Canada. Don't forget, he is their head of state, just like he is our head of state. However, that was kind of all brushed aside, saying, no, that can't happen because there's going to be elections, so it wouldn't be right. However, we have now had an election, and Mark Carney, in his first press conference, deciding that to add a little flourish, he would announce that the King is going to be there to open Parliament on the 27th of May. So obviously a huge moment for him. I've just been doing what you usually do with these things, a little Google. Apparently, the last time that the Queen Elizabeth, opened a session of the Canadian Parliament was actually 1977. So it's not a standard thing that the monarch would be there to deliver a speech. So this will be a very special moment. But I think for me, at the moment, what is so fascinating is that, of course, he is Canada's monarch. He has been showing, I would say, an abundance of support for Canada recently. He met up with Justin Trudeau before he departed. He's also met up with Mark Carney before those elections. I think the King has been going out of his way to show publicly his support for Canada, which is obviously always there. But on the other hand, he's also being deployed as our main way of courting Donald Trump. How on earth does that work?
Yeah,
and that, for me, is the fascinating dynamic in terms of how the King has kind of really been positioned at kind of the forefront of those diplomatic matters at the moment. But yeah, so fascinating. Wouldn't you love to be kind of part of those conversations? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? Because as you say, with all this talk about turning Canada into, the 51st state, I think there has been some questions about whether, as such a key ally, the UK should be taking a more robust line on that, for example.
Well, and it's almost like Donald Trump doesn't kind of acknowledge that the man that he is kind of so fulsome in his praise of, I think King Charles is probably one of the only people that he's not taken a pop at. Donald Trump doesn't seem to acknowledge that actually he is monarch of Canada. So this whole chat about 51st state is a little bit kind of offensive towards King Charles. But yeah, obviously this year is going to be fascinating to see how and when we might have a potential state visit, trips over here by Donald Trump, how exactly the King is going to be positioned and used around that. But I think this trip to Canada very much, again, reinforcing that commitment to Canada, the Canadian people, and showing the support in the way that the royal family can through soft power and that soft diplomacy.
Absolutely.
Always very subtle. The optics.
Donald Trump seems to have kind of dropped the whole 51st state thing literally in the last kind of few weeks, and so people say it was partly because Mark Carney kind of stood up to him when he became Prime Minister, and so who knows, maybe by the time the King arrives there, they might have worked out a deal. But
I think what's always interesting is historically we talked so much about Queen Elizabeth II and how she was this really seasoned diplomat and how she would have those quiet conversations behind the scenes. You have to remember that King Charles, although he was waiting in the wings for a very long time as heir, he also has a huge amount of experience in terms of navigating those difficult diplomatic discussions. And I think certainly when you saw him meeting up with President Zelensky, you've seen him meeting up with the Canadian Prime Ministers as well. Look, we don't hear about the conversations that go on behind the scenes, but I know that the King is a man who is consistently asking, what more can I do? What more can I do to make a difference? And I've got no doubt that he is saying as much as he can at the moment. But yeah, be fascinating to see him go to Canada and deliver that speech.